The afternoon sun beat down on the busy Lagos mainland street, turning the air hot and dry. Vendors shouted prices, cars honked, and dust danced in the heat. In the middle of it all stood Amaka, a proud young woman with dark, glowing skin, smart clothes, and confidence that filled the air around her. She had just parked her silver Toyota Corolla, holding her designer handbag, her phone pressed to her ear as she laughed with her friend Cecilia. Then a soft, tired voice spoke behind her. "Please, madam, can you help me with something to eat?" Amaka turned sharply. A man in torn jeans and a faded shirt stood there. His beard was unshaved and his eyes looked weary. But behind that rough look was a calm, intelligent gaze, one that most people would miss. "En? Who are you talking to?" she snapped, stepping back as if he was diseased. "You think I look like I pick people from the street? Abeg, go your way." People around looked quietly, embarrassed for the man. He only smiled faintly, bowing slightly. "I didn't mean to offend you, miss. I was just... Please, don't talk to me." Amaka cut in, waving her hand. "You look like you should be washing cars, not talking to me." Cecilia, her friend, frowned. "Amaka, that's enough. He didn't do anything wrong." "See, you won't understand," Amaka hissed. "These kind of people, once you start pitying them, they'll follow you like glue." But Edwin, the homeless man, didn't say another word. He simply nodded and walked away quietly, his eyes cold and unreadable. The crowd whispered. Cecilia's heart ached as she watched him leave. There was something different about that man. His voice, his calmness, the way he didn't beg again after being insulted. Something didn't add up. Later that night, Cecilia couldn't sleep. The man's face kept flashing in her mind. "Everything is not about money," she whispered to herself. That guy, he spoke with wisdom. She didn't know that the man she was thinking about was actually Edwin Okoro, the billionaire tech company founder from Banana Island, a man worth millions of dollars who had chosen to disguise himself as a poor man to find genuine love. 2 weeks earlier, inside a grand mansion filled with smart home devices and glass walls overlooking the lagoon, Edwin sat alone in his study. He was only 28, yet already one of the youngest tech billionaires in Nigeria. But success had become a cage. Every woman he dated seemed more in love with his wealth than with him. "Maybe love doesn't exist for men like me," he said quietly. His assistant Dio looked up. "Sir, don't say that. You just need the right one. Maybe someone outside your world." Edwin smiled weakly. "That's exactly what I'm thinking, Dio." That same week, he packed simple clothes, shaved off his fine beard, and moved into a tiny rented apartment in Agege. No one there knew his name or that he owned one of the biggest tech companies in Africa. He walked to the market every day, observing people. He wanted to find someone who would love him for who he was, not for the cars or money. And that was when he saw Amaka. Her beauty was striking, her walk confident. But there was pride in her eyes, the kind that looked down on those below her. Still, he thought maybe her heart was different. So the day he gathered the courage to speak to her, she crushed him with words. That night, Edwin sat in his small apartment, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. But then, his thoughts drifted back to Cecilia, the friend who had defended him. Her eyes had kindness, and her words had warmth. He smiled faintly. "Maybe kindness still exists," he said softly. And from that moment, his focus shifted. He wanted to know more about the girl who stood up for him when everyone else laughed. The next morning, Edwin returned to the same store. He waited near the fruit stand until he saw Cecilia walk by. When she noticed him, she smiled politely. "Hey, you're the man from the other day." "Yes," Edwin replied. "I wanted to thank you for what you said. Not everyone would defend a stranger." Cecilia smiled again. "You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry about my friend." As they talked, a soft connection began to form, the kind that starts slow but deep. He told her his name was Edwin, without mentioning his last name. She told him she worked as a sales assistant at a small boutique and that she dreamed of starting her own fashion line someday. She laughed easily. She listened more than she talked. And for the first time in a long while, Edwin felt seen, not for his money, but for his mind. But while Edwin and Cecilia's quiet friendship grew stronger, Amaka was beginning to notice. The same man she had mocked now seemed to have Cecilia's attention, and for reasons she couldn't explain, it burned her pride. See, don't tell me you're talking to that dirty man again, Amaka said sharply one afternoon. Cecilia frowned. His name is Edwin. And yes, I am. He's smart, Amaka. You should listen when he talks. Smart doesn't pay bills, Amaka scoffed. You'll see. One day, he'll beg you for money. Cecilia only smiled. Maybe he doesn't need to. That single sentence, maybe he doesn't need to, would later become the beginning of something that shocked everyone. Because unknown to Amaka, the man she had insulted and laughed at was about to change Cecilia's life forever. And very soon, she would regret every word she said on that hot Lagos afternoon. For the next few weeks, the streets of Agega seemed calmer whenever Edwin showed up. He blended in easily his rough clothes, the small nylon bag he carried everywhere, his calm eyes that looked older than his face. No one could ever guess that this homeless man once slept on Egyptian cotton sheets in Banana Island, or that his company, Technova Systems, powered some of the biggest banks in Africa. Each morning, he left his tiny apartment with a notepad in his hand, pretending to look for jobs. But in truth, he was writing down people's behavior. He watched how they treated one another. He noticed kindness, greed, pride, and how the poor helped one another more than the rich ever did. But there was one person who stood out every time. Cecilia. She wasn't rich, but she carried grace. When rain caught people unprepared, she shared her umbrella. When the fruit seller shouted at a hungry boy for touching his goods, she gave the boy a banana from her bag and smiled. That was the kind of person Edwin wanted in his life, not someone like Amaka, who laughed at a man's struggle without knowing his story. One Saturday afternoon, Edwin saw Cecilia again. She was sitting in front of her shop, sewing a torn dress for a customer. "Hello again," Edwin said softly. She looked up, smiling. "Ah, it's you again." He chuckled. "It's me. How are you?" "I'm fine," she said. "There's something about your eyes. You talk like someone who has seen life from both sides," Cecilia said, unable to hide her curiosity. That statement hit him deep. For a moment, he forgot he was pretending. He forgot the dusty slippers on his feet and the sweat on his shirt. "You're right," he said quietly. "I have." As days went by, their friendship grew. Edwin would buy roasted corn for both of them, and they would sit by the roadside, laughing at random things. He told her stories not of mansions and meetings, but of life lessons, dreams, and simple joy. One day, Cecilia asked, "Do you have a family?" He smiled sadly. "Yes, but they don't even know where I am. I needed time to find something real, something money can't buy." She looked at him closely, curious. "Like love?" He nodded. "Exactly like love." Their eyes met for a second longer than normal. There was a quiet electricity between them, soft but powerful. Meanwhile, Amaka had begun to notice the change in Cecilia. Her friend now hummed songs while sewing, smiled at nothing, and often excused herself to take calls. One evening, Amaka followed her secretly and saw her sitting with Edwin by a roadside suya stand, laughing freely, her pride boiled. "That useless man again," she hissed under her breath. She marched up to them, her heels hitting the dusty ground. "Cecilia, you mean it's true? You're still talking to this homeless man?" Cecilia stood up quietly. "Amaka, please stop." "Stop? This is embarrassing. You're supposed to be my friend, not someone who hangs out with beggars." Edwin stood too, calm as ever. "Miss, I understand your anger, but please, don't insult her." Amaka turned sharply to him. "Keep quiet. You should be ashamed of yourself, using pity to get attention." Cecilia stepped in front of Edwin. "Enough, you're crossing the line, Amaka." The tension was thick. People began to stare. Then Edwin said softly, "Miss Amaka, do you believe people only have value when they look rich?" "Yes," she shouted. "In this Lagos, money speaks. Nobody cares about story." He smiled faintly. "Then I pity those who judge life by the clothes they see." Amaka stormed off, her face red with anger. Cecilia turned to Edwin. "I'm sorry, she's not always like this." He smiled. "Don't worry, you've already shown me enough kindness to forget 1,000 insults." Her eyes softened. "You really don't sound like a poor man, Edwin." He laughed gently. "Maybe I'm just a dreamer." Weeks passed, and soon Edwin and Cecilia became inseparable. They walked together, talked together, and slowly fell in love. But Edwin's double life began to weigh on him. Each night, when Cecilia went home, he would return to his small room, open his hidden laptop, and read messages from his assistant. Dio. Sir, the board wants to know when you're coming back. Investors are waiting. Edwin. Not yet. I'm close to finding what I came here for. One night, he stared at Cecilia's photo on his phone. She loves me for who I am. But will she still love me when she finds out I'm not poor? He had to know. The next weekend, he invited her out. There's something I want to show you, he said with a mysterious smile. They met near Ikeja. A sleek black SUV stopped in front of them. Two men in suits stepped out. Cecilia's eyes widened. Who are these people? She whispered. Edwin looked at her calmly. My drivers. They'll take us somewhere. She blinked. Drivers? I thought you said. He smiled. Just trust me. As they drove through the city, the roads changed from dusty Agege streets to smooth Lekki Expressway. Finally, the car stopped before a massive gate guarded by security. Cecilia turned to him, speechless. Edwin, where are we? He smiled softly. Home. The gate opened slowly. Inside stood a grand mansion with glass walls, fountains, and luxury cars. She froze, her mouth open. He turned to her. Cecilia, I'm sorry I lied. I needed to find someone who could love me without money. I'm Edwin Okoro, the owner of Technova Systems. Cecilia's heart pounded. She couldn't speak. He took her hands gently. I pretended to be homeless because I wanted to find truth, and I found it in you. Tears filled her eyes. I don't care who you are. You didn't have to test me to know I'm real. He smiled sadly. Now I know, and I won't ever doubt you again. They embraced, and for a brief moment, the world felt still, but far away. Watching from the shadows near the gate, Amaka stood in her car, her eyes filled with envy and hate. She clenched her fists. So he's rich. And she got him? Her lips twisted into a dangerous smile. This isn't over. Cecilia will regret this. For a while, everything felt perfect. Cecilia's life changed overnight. From the small boutique she worked in, she was suddenly traveling to exotic countries, London, Dubai, Paris, all beside Edwin. He introduced her to a world she never thought she'd touch. He didn't just buy her gifts. He introduced her to ideas. He helped her start her fashion brand, Sea Style Africa, and pushed her to open her first store in Lekki. And though the world now knew her as the billionaire's girlfriend, Cecilia never let it change her heart. She still treated people with kindness. She still smiled at gatekeepers and greeted drivers. That humility was one of the reasons Edwin loved her deeply. But not everyone was happy about it. Amaka couldn't sleep. She scrolled through social media every night, seeing photos of Cecilia and Edwin laughing on yachts, attending charity events, cutting ribbons for new projects. The same man she once insulted now lived in glory with her friend. Her pride turned into jealousy, her jealousy into hate. How dare she? Amaka shouted one evening, throwing her phone on the bed. She's living the life I deserve. That man was meant to be mine, if not for that nonsense disguise. Her cousin Kunle leaned back on the sofa, chewing gum. Calm down, Auntie Fine Girl. There's always a way to bring someone down. Amaka turned slowly. What do you mean? Kunle smirked. You say this Cecilia girl is enjoying too much. We can fix that. Just one setup, and boom, her perfect life crashes. Amaka hesitated, then nodded. I'm listening. And O's. It's not wand. Rastrings is. Meanwhile, Edwin was planning a surprise for Cecilia. Babe, he said, holding her hand across the table at his private restaurant. I'm traveling next week for a conference in Germany. I want you to come with me. Her face lit up. Really? Yes, but before then, I need to send my security chief to give you a small tracker necklace, just in case of emergencies. Lagos is not safe these days. Cecilia laughed. You and your gadgets, always in tech mode. He smiled. Better safe than sorry. He didn't know that the gift would soon save her life. 3 days later, Amaka's plan started. She called Cecilia, pretending she wanted peace. See, please, I'm sorry for everything. Let's meet and talk. I miss my friend. Cecilia, being gentle-hearted, agreed. Okay, let's meet at the Marina Cafe at 5. But when she arrived, Amaka wasn't alone. 2 men sat at another table, pretending to be strangers. They were part of Kunle's plan. As they all talked, Amaka smiled sweetly. See, I'm really happy for you. You've grown. You deserve happiness." Cecilia smiled, relieved. "Thank you, Amaka. I'm glad we can be friends again." "Of course," Amaka said, signaling to the waiter. "Drinks on me. To new beginnings." Minutes later, glasses clinked, laughter filled the air, and Cecilia didn't notice one of the men sprinkling powder into her juice when she turned to answer a call. Within minutes, she felt dizzy. "Amaka, I don't feel so good." "Ah, maybe it's the Sunday relax. You'll be fine," Amaka said, faking concern. Cecilia's vision blurred. She stood up weakly. "I think I need to go home." Andy ate with, but before she could reach the door, Kunle and his friend quickly stood to help her. "Let's take her home," Kunle whispered to Amaka. "We'll make it look like she was with strange men when the photos drop." Amaka's hands shook slightly. "Just make sure no one dies," Kunle grinned. "Relax, it's only a scandal. Edwin will dump her after this." Meanwhile, in Edwin's office at Technova Towers, he was in a meeting when his phone beeped. A red light blinked on his smartwatch, the distress signal from Cecilia's necklace tracker. He froze. "What?" His bodyguard turned quickly. "Sir, trace her signal now," Edwin shouted, standing up. Within seconds, a team of security men rushed out, their black SUVs tearing through the Lagos traffic. Edwin's heart pounded as the GPS showed her location moving fast toward an abandoned warehouse in Oshodi. At the same time, Cecilia was barely conscious. Her hands trembled as she remembered Edwin's voice. "Press the pendant twice if you're ever in danger." She used the last of her strength to press the small diamond button on her necklace twice. Then she blacked out. When Edwin's convoy arrived, everything happened fast. "Spread out," he shouted as they stormed the warehouse. The men were caught off guard. One tried to run, but the guards pinned him down. Another raised a bottle to threaten them, but Edwin's security disarmed him instantly. Amaka, hiding near the back, gasped in fear. "Sir," one guard called. "We found her." Edwin ran toward Cecilia, who was lying on a dirty couch, her dress torn slightly, but she was breathing. He fell to his knees beside her, tears filling his eyes. "See, wake up, please," she groaned weakly, her eyes fluttering open. "Edwin?" He held her tightly. "You're safe now. I'm here." As the police arrived, the full story unfolded. The men confessed everything that Amaka had planned the setup out of jealousy. She tried to deny it, but the recorded messages on Kunle's phone exposed her. When Edwin looked at her, his expression was cold and heavy. "You judged me when I looked poor, Amaka. And now your heart has judged you." Amaka broke down in tears as she was led into the police van. That night, as Cecilia lay resting in the hospital, Edwin sat beside her, holding her hand. "You almost died because of me," he whispered. "If anything had happened." She smiled faintly. "You saved me, again." He kissed her forehead gently. "You're my everything now, Cecilia. No one will ever hurt you again." But even as peace filled that hospital room, there was still one shadow lurking outside, a man watching from his car, his eyes cold and calculating. He was Amaka's secret boyfriend, and he wasn't ready to let this story end peacefully. For several months after the incident, life slowly returned to normal. Cecilia recovered from the drug attack and began to shine brighter than ever. Her fashion business, C-Style Africa, became a national success. Magazines called her the Billionaire's Heart of Gold. Edwin, on the other hand, became even more protective. He refused to let her walk alone, always assigning 2 guards wherever she went. Yet despite the peace that followed, a quiet tension still lingered, like a storm waiting for its moment. What Edwin and Cecilia didn't know was that Kola, Amaka's secret boyfriend, was plotting something dark. Kola had been the one helping Kunle with logistics during the failed setup. When Amaka was arrested, he fled Lagos to Ibadan angry, ashamed, and broke. But jealousy burned deeper than reason. "How can she destroy Amaka's life and live happily?" he muttered, hitting his steering wheel. "She must pay." He had no proof of innocence to save Amaka, but in his mind, Cecilia was to blame for everything. He spent weeks gathering information, tracing Edwin's security patterns, mapping routes, and following Cecilia's boutique schedules. His plan was simple but cruel: kidnap Cecilia and demand ransom, not for money, but for revenge. One bright Friday afternoon, Cecilia was at her new boutique in Lekki, attending to clients. She was wearing a cream suit with a matching head tie, her laughter filling the air. Her assistant, Ngozi, looked at her proudly. "Madam, you look so happy these days." Cecilia smiled. "Happiness is a decision, Ngozi. Even when life tries to break you, you choose peace." Just then, her phone buzzed. It was Edwin. "Babe, I'll be late today. Big investor meeting." "No problem, love. I'll be fine here." But as she ended the call, she didn't notice a black van parked across the street. Inside, Kola sat, watching her every move through binoculars. "She looks so peaceful," he said with a smirk. "Let's ruin that." He adjusted his cap and signaled to two men beside him. By evening, when the shop closed, Cecilia stepped out, waving goodbye to her staff. The road was quiet, the streetlights flickering. Her driver was supposed to pick her up, but a strange man approached instead. "Madam Cecilia," he said politely. "Ogre Edwin sent me. Your driver had an emergency. I'm to take you home." She hesitated. "Where's Francis?" "He's at the hospital with his wife, Ma. He said I should tell you. You can call Ogre Edwin if you like." The man smiled confidently, even showing her a fake Technova badge. Thinking it was a last-minute change, Cecilia entered the car. But as soon as the door locked, the man pressed something on his phone. The car didn't drive toward Lekki. Phase 1, it turned into a quiet road leading toward Aja's outskirts. Cecilia's heart began to race. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Relax, madam." "Shortcut," the driver said coldly. That voice, that cold tone, it wasn't normal. Her fingers trembled as she reached for her purse, searching for her phone. But before she could, the man in the front seat turned, pointing a gun at her. "Don't move, madam. Just sit quietly." Tears filled her eyes. "Who are you?" "You'll find out soon." At that moment, Edwin was still in his meeting. His phone buzzed once the emergency alert again. The same necklace signal she had pressed the day she was drugged. His chair fell as he stood abruptly. "Cancel the meeting," he barked, running out of the boardroom. Within minutes, his convoy was speeding down Lekki-Epe Expressway, following the GPS tracker blinking on the dashboard. "Sir," said one of his guards, "the signal's moving fast toward Sangatido." "Then drive faster," Edwin shouted, gripping his seat. Inside the moving van, Cecilia's tears ran silently. "Please," she whispered. "What do you want?" "Money?" Kola, sitting beside her, finally removed his cap. "I don't want your money," he said with a smirk. "I want you to feel what Amaka felt. Humiliation, pain, and loss." Her eyes widened. You're with Amaka?" He sneered. "She's in jail because of you. I lost everything. But today, you'll cry the way she did." He nodded to the driver. "Take her to the docks." Meanwhile, Edwin's SUV screeched to a halt at a police checkpoint. He didn't wait for clearance, he flashed his ID. "Billionaire Edwin Okoro. My fiancé's been kidnapped. Trace every road camera towards Sangatido." The officers sprang into action, calling backup. Within minutes, the city's command center picked up footage of a black van matching the description. "There," a voice said through the radio. "They're heading toward the abandoned jetty." Edwin's heart pounded as his convoy raced toward the sea. At the jetty, the night air was cold and damp. Cecilia was dragged out roughly, her necklace flashing under the moonlight. Kola stood before her, anger in his eyes. "Say goodbye to your perfect life." She looked up at him, trembling. "You don't have to do this, Kola. Please, you'll destroy yourself." He laughed bitterly. "I lost everything already. What's left to destroy?" But before he could say more, a loud voice thundered from behind. "Kola, don't move." Flashlights cut through the darkness. Edwin's men poured in, weapons drawn. Sirens wailed from the distance. Kola grabbed Cecilia, pressing the gun to her head. "Don't come closer, I'll shoot her." Edwin stepped forward, eyes burning. "Kola, think. You're not a killer. You hurt her. You die tonight." Kola's hand trembled. Sweat ran down his face. "You took everything from me," he shouted. "I didn't take anything from you." Edwin's voice broke. "You followed someone blinded by pride and envy. You destroyed yourself." For a tense moment, silence hung in the air. Then Cecilia whispered, "Kola, please, let me go." Something in her voice, the gentleness, the forgiveness made Kola hesitate. His grip loosened. That was all Edwin's guards needed. In one swift move, they tackled him to the ground, the gun sliding into the water. Cecilia ran into Edwin's arms, sobbing. "You came He held her tight. "I'll always come for you." Kola was arrested, kicking and shouting. The police led him away as Edwin's men surrounded the couple. That night, the story trended across Lagos. Billionaire Edwin Okoro saves fiancée from kidnapping. But to Edwin, it wasn't about headlines. He had almost lost the only woman who had ever loved him for his soul, not his fortune. He looked into her teary eyes and whispered, "After tonight, I'll never let you walk through danger again. You deserve peace, Cecilia, forever." She smiled faintly, resting her head on his chest. "I don't need forever," she said softly. "I just need you." But little did they know. Someone else was watching the news from a prison television, Amaka. Her lips curled into a bitter smile as she whispered, "So she survived again? Fine, but the story isn't over." She turned off the TV, her eyes glowing with dangerous calm. A year had passed since the night Cecilia was almost taken from Edwin forever. Time had washed away most of the scars, but not the memories. The court case had made national headlines, Amaka and accomplices sentenced for attempted kidnapping and drugging. The public sympathized with Cecilia, calling her the girl who loved the homeless man and found gold. But to her, fame didn't matter. What mattered was peace and love. It was a quiet Sunday morning in Banana Island. The breeze from the lagoon blew gently into the open windows of Edwin's mansion. Cecilia stood by the balcony, watching the sunrise, dressed in a soft blue robe. Edwin came from behind and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You're up early again," he said softly. She smiled. "Old habits. I like to watch the morning before the world wakes up." He rested his chin on her shoulder. "You know, I still remember the first day I met you. You were defending a stranger. Everyone else mocked." Cecilia laughed quietly. "You mean the homeless man who later bought me an entire fashion store?" They both laughed, the kind of laugh that heals. Later that week, Edwin had an idea. He wanted to remind Cecilia that love was not built on wealth or luxury, but on simplicity. "Pack a small bag," he told her one evening. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere that started everything." The next morning, their car stopped in front of a familiar street, the dusty road where they had first met. The same small kiosk still stood there, the same vendor still roasting corn under the scorching Sunday. Cecilia blinked in surprise. "This place, it hasn't changed." Edwin nodded. "No, but we have." They walked hand in hand through the market. People looked at them curiously. Some recognized them, others didn't care. Edwin bought 2 roasted corns, just like before, and they sat by the roadside, laughing. "I used to dream of a day like this," he said. "A day I could sit here and know I wasn't pretending anymore." She looked at him, her eyes soft. "You don't have to pretend ever again. You've already found what you were searching for." He smiled. "Yes, a love that sees beyond money." That afternoon, as they prepared to leave, Edwin surprised her again. "Wait," he said, dropping to one knee, right there on the dusty street. Cecilia gasped. "Edwin!" People around stopped what they were doing. Even the corn seller froze. Edwin looked up at her, holding out a small velvet box. "Cecilia, you met me when I was nothing. You saw me when no one else did. You loved me when the world turned away. You've been my peace, my heart, and my home." Tears welled up in her eyes as he continued, "So right here, in the same place I first saw your kindness, I want to ask you, will you marry me?" Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth, tears falling freely. "Yes, yes, I will." The crowd erupted in cheers. Some clapped, others took videos. The corn seller shouted joyfully, "God don do am again, oh." Edwin stood, slipping the ring onto her finger, a gold band with a single diamond, elegant and pure. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "From the street to the stars, we made it." 3 months later, their wedding was the talk of Lagos. The ceremony was grand yet simple, filled with tears of joy. Cecilia walked down the aisle in a flowing ivory gown, her mother holding her hand, while Edwin waited at the altar, eyes glistening with pride. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," Edwin whispered softly, "I love you not for what you are, but for who you were when no one was watching." The kiss that followed was more than love. It was destiny sealed with faith. During the reception, as music filled the hall and guests danced in happiness, Cecilia found a quiet corner and smiled to herself. Her journey had started with kindness, defending a stranger who only needed a little compassion, and it ended with that same stranger becoming her husband. She looked up at the ceiling lights, whispering, "Thank you, God, for turning a test into a testimony." Edwin joined her, holding her hand. "What are you thinking about?" She smiled. "Just how funny life is. I once ignored you at first because I thought you were homeless." He laughed. "And now, you're stuck with me forever." They both laughed, pulling each other into a slow dance under the soft glow of the chandeliers. As the crowd cheered and the music swelled, Edwin whispered, "This is proof, Cecilia, true love doesn't look at what you have. It looks at who you are." And as they held each other close, the applause around them faded into the soft rhythm of their hearts, beating as one, built not on riches, but on kindness, forgiveness, and love that endured every test. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.